Your unit was one of the ones, on paper people were looking at in terms of who was going to emerge,
right,
given the two starters who graduated. Now toward the fall camp's over, getting into close to game prep, what are you looking at there?
Well, I think it was the same thing that I said in the springtime, that our production is going to have to come as a committee. I think we do have a nice blend of playmakers and steady makers, and what I mean by that is the playmakers are the guys that can, you've got guys like T.D. Roof and really Micah McFadden's a young kid that's making a lot of plays. Damian Willis is getting better every day, and he's a natural playmaker. And then, you've got some other guys that are really good steady makers in terms of, Thomas Allen's doing a phenomenal job for us. I think Raekwon he makes a ton of plays, but he's also really steady out there for us. So it's starting to shape up a little bit in terms of those 5 or 6 guys that we're going to see out there on the field. But I think we can't say, hey, just when we get to the first game, that's the best that we're going to do. It has to be a process through the season.
Given the 4-game rule, any freshmen you're looking at to maybe play early?
I think Micah McFadden's going to play, and if you guys have watched any of the scrimmages and stuff like that, he shows out as a playmaker. He runs his tail off to get to the ball, and so I think he's a guy that probably will go much further than the 4-game rule. James Miller would be a person that obviously we would have in that role. That is he a 4-game guy? Do we play him a little bit more than that? I think time will tell. The question that's hard about the 4-game rule is, do you play him early, or do you use those 4 games as a precursor to spring ball? Or maybe you need them somewhere in the middle and all that stuff. So, and then of course on the outside, Cam Jones will play this season.
It sounded like Micah was seeing time both with the stinger and the mic. Is
Yeah.
there a position that you like him best at right now?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to settle him into Mike and see if he can compete for one of those top 2 jobs at the Mike backer spot. But he started off at Mike. We recognized that he had some athleticism that that really exceeded our expectations, and so we put him at stinger. And then knowing where we're at right now, we just think that the best chance for him to get on the field is at Mike backer, but he's going to do some crossover work for us.
T.D. and Damian are both guys that maybe you weren't maybe planning on having in the spring. Obviously, for different reasons, they're back with you here in preseason. Just how much of a boost have they been?
Well, and to kind of go back to that point, we said we were going to be a committee by the springtime. The committee, or back in the spring, the committee's just kind of changed now, and really when you look at it, I mean, with now having those guys, it's a tremendous shot in the arm to that group, because you got 2 guys really, as I said before, are both, in my mind, playmakers. And ultimately, you got to execute, but somebody has to step up and make plays, and I think both those guys can do that for us.
So Micah created a takeaway a little bit earlier in practice. Is that something you kind of noticed him develop a knack for early on?
He did. Coach Allen's got you guys saying takeaway too, right? Not the bad word.
Right.
No, he is. I think it's something that obviously we've emphasized in this defense ever since I've been in it, and Coach Allen really has stressed that every single day, and it's something that the guys have really bought into. Micah, when you talk about playmakers, there's guys that just naturally have a knack for the ball, putting people on the ground, getting the ball out. Without question, Micah McFadden's one of those people.
Is there a guy that's maybe leading the way as far as takeaways at this group?
Probably, if you had to say, Micah would probably be the one right now that continues to find a way to create takeaways by getting the ball out and forcing the ball out and cause fumble. And then I would say probably in the passing game, obviously Leno's the most dynamic from the Husky position.
Willis was the guy who went through senior day last year. Wasn't sure he was going to come back, and then Coach Allen said we made him earn it. I'd say okay, you're coming back, but nothing's handed to you. You're going to have to earn it again. How's he been in that regard, earning it again?
That's a great question, because him and I have had a lot of one-on-one conversations, getting to know each other a little bit. Obviously everybody in the building knew him for a number of years. I never met the guy till this summer,
Right.
So a lot of one-on-one conversations, a lot of getting to feel each other and know each other. My coaching style, I'm going to coach them hard and all that stuff, but I also want to hear them. I want to get to know them, and I want to know, as a senior, what do you know and what do you not know, and what can we fix? So that's been a good transition, but again, something that I think is a really strong building foundation for the future.
What is it about T that allows him to be successful? He's not really a big guy for that position.
Yeah. Well, he has a knack for the ball. His athleticism. Sometimes you can get away with, I would say, those more compact type bodies. There's a lot of explosiveness that comes from his lower half. and then he's just got a natural feel for the ball. So how to leverage things, how to understand where the ball's going. He's just, again, he's one of those playmakers.
How much does it help that he's the son of our coach?
Well, you know, coach's sons, we're on an elite level, you know, being a coach's son myself, you know, we just see the game totally different than everybody else. No, I think there's no question it helps, you know, and I think he probably took advantage of that a lot more than I did growing up. And Ted is obviously getting to play for his dad, Ted, for a year. The experience that he had on the field, whether it was special teams, whether it was on the field, like, it was experience. And right now in this room, any experience will help.
How has TD adjusted to the extra weight he's playing with, too?
You know, that's probably a better question for Dave Ballou, but just from what I understand, you know, he played 205 this spring. He's up to about 223, 224 right now, and he gained 2 miles an hour in terms of his speed work in the summertime. So, you know, I can't tell you all the things, but that sounds a lot better to me, you know.
What about, you know, having, you know, dealing with Marcelino's another guy that missed a lot of time last year? You know, how's he been in terms of fitting back in and getting going?
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you. I thought Lino in the springtime, you know, I was hard on Lino. I think Lino was finding himself again as a football player, and really there was a little bit of give and take between the two of us in the springtime, and I thought, you know, we had some good conversations. We got to know each other a little bit better. I think time, you know, heals a lot of things, and going through this summer, he was so detailed in what he did in the summer, just matter of fact about his business, and I could not be more excited about Marcelino Ball right now. Just a guy that does his job. He's consistent every day. He's taking Cam Jones under his wing, a true freshman that's going to have to play behind him, and he's a developer, and he's become a leader. And walking out of spring, I couldn't have told you that. So more than pleased with where Lino is right now.
How's Raekwon's August been so far?
Really good. You know, he had that bang up a couple of weeks ago, and that held him out for about a week there. And so he was really steady before, and then coming back, you know, took 2 days to get the rust knocked off, and now he's executing at a really high level. So when you talk about a guy that's a playmaker but also a really steady competitor for our defense, you know, Raekwon's kind of the guy that comes to mind.
When he was out, was anyone maybe taking advantage of that time that was afforded?
Without question, TD. You know, TD got a ton of reps. Micah McFadden, I think during that time we found out what Micah McFadden really was when he took a bunch of reps with the twos. And then we realized, you know, James Miller, who was playing Stinger, is going to be a very good player for the future. We just, for roster management issues, if we can, we'd like to hold a couple of those kids back in red shirt.
Yeah.